Hello. So first, I would just wanted to take the time to thank the Student Senate for the opportunity to come up and speak with everyone, and whoever nominated me, thanks, I guess. But let's get into it. So hello and good evening, everyone. I really appreciate you coming out to listen to me, even though I know that a considerable portion of you are people who I know who just felt obliged to watch me. The rest of you probably found out there was pizza here, or you're here for crew feed, which is fine. That's all good. But if you're here, now you're trapped because I would definitely call you out if you leave. For those of you who have no idea who I am, first I'd like to say welcome to me and congratulations on being here. I'm up here because people consider me someone who's been successful in my time at CMU, and those people wanted me to share the proverbial secrets of my success. This is problematic for two reasons. One, always a gamble when you give me a microphone because you have no idea if I'm actually going to go rogue. And two, I wouldn't really consider myself a successful person in traditional CMU terms. That is to say, I don't have the, oh my God. And God said, let there be sound. Anyway, I don't have the coolest or most lucrative internship experiences. I know I won't get a six-figure job right out of college, and I don't always do my work. However, I do know that I'm happy. Moreover, I care more about the fact that I'm happy, and that's the shift that I hope to see more of our community take. But I've listened to students complain. I've read the overheard posts. I know that happy is not the word that most students would use when they think about CMU. In fact, the words that I've heard many students use probably can't be used in polite company. So many of you may be asking, Rob, how do you stay so happy at CMU? Great question. The answer is simple. I remember 4 key lessons that I've learned whenever I start to feel unhappy. Before we go on this journey of me telling you my secrets, I want to be upfront about 3 things. 1, if it isn't clear by now, I love to make jokes. I will be doing a lot of that during this speech. 2, I tend to go off on tangents. I'll try to do less of that, and it helps that I have the speech written down, so just stick with me through the stories, and I promise that there's a pot of gold at the end. And 3, I curse a lot. I would say that I make sure not to do that, but I'm not going to tell you that lie. I actually, my eyes lit up when they told me during my audition that I could curse, and I didn't know that President Suresh would be here, so we're going in, people. So let's get this show on the road. You may want to write these down. It's not that there will be a test at the end, but next time you want to see me give away all this great advice, you're going to have to pay a hefty admission fee. Just letting you know. So first, remember that destiny is bullshit. The argument of whether destiny is real or not is one that's deeply philosophical. It's one that's been going on since the ancient times, and it's not one that I want to have right now. To word this in a way that may be a bit less divisive, just remember that you usually have a choice. Obviously, there are things in life that you don't have a choice about. The family you're born into, your race, your sexuality, etc. But there are a lot of things that we have control over that can bring stress. For instance, imagine little Robert, young, inexplicably handsome, and full of wonder and potential. If you've been around someone with kids, you know that they're just making wild guesses as to what the kid's gonna do. Oh my God, she put together 3 Legos. She's gonna be an architect. Robert was no different. As soon as I was able to press the on button on a computer, everyone in my family knew that I was going to be a computer engineer. And I just kind of carried the idea with me through high school. It helped that I ended up being good at math and science, and it was just a cherry on top when I found out, wow, the salary is great, and I got into this really good engineering school. Seemed that everything was falling into place, but there was one slight problem. I realized I would rather claw my eyes out than spend the rest of my life as an engineer. Damn it. Being the type of person who likes to have a plan, this really messed with my psyche. Suddenly, I didn't know what I was going to do. At first, that caused a huge knot to form in my stomach, but after some deep reflection and some very blunt words from people close to me, that was another feeling. It was relief. See, I'd spent so much time living my life along the expectations imposed upon me by others that what started out seeming like a free fall into uncertainty was more like a graceful swan dive into a pool of potential. I'm going to let some time for that beautiful metaphor to just sink in. But because I no longer had to know exactly what I wanted to do, I just did things. I did them, I kept on doing them, and I still do them. And without the tether of absolute certainty that I thought I had to live by, I found the freedom to stumble, mumble, and roll into things that I actually enjoyed. And it's led to some of my most rewarding experiences here. But just to be sure that y'all don't think this is just a one-trick pony type of advice, there are times outside of academics to which this is still relevant. It was relevant for me when it came to my relationships. I used to believe I was dating a girl who I was destined to marry. Most of my family thought the same. My mom was talking about how I'd have half Russian babies. Clearly she was the Russian one. My brother was asking if I was gonna wait until after college to get the ring. And my grandma, may she rest in peace, was already inviting her to family barbecues. In case you didn't know, in a black family, that's like the highest seal of approval you can get. Those of you who are listening astutely may have realized that I said the key word was when I was talking about her. Spoiler alert, we're no longer dating. Long story short, I realized after getting some distance that we were in an emotionally abusive relationship and that I was letting the idea that we were meant to be together get in the way of how I actually felt. We eventually broke up, and the old tune of me being sad about it played out as it does. But now I'm older, wiser, still ruggedly handsome, and I'm realizing that I was letting the idea of destiny get in my way. And now that I stopped doing so, I feel a lot more content. See, multiple trick pony. Lesson number 2, it's perfectly okay to not know what comes next. It might seem like this would have been covered in the last lesson, but it bears repetition because it addresses the other side of the coin. Destiny will tell you that X, Y, and Z is supposed to happen. It's totally possible to believe that and still hold on to the illusion that you can control everything around you. As I mentioned before, I'm the type of person who really likes to have a plan and control things, but that doesn't always work out. And I learned that lesson through fake wrestling, believe it or not. I don't know if any of you have ever, thank you, David. I don't know if any of you have ever watched the WWE, or if any of the parents in the audience have had their kids watching it, but just trust me when I tell you the most ludicrous shit happens on that show. I haven't watched in about a decade, but somehow they've convinced a significant portion of America that it's possible for a grown man to throw another man off a ladder and through a table, and they both just get up and everything's fine. Foreseeing that they may not be dealing with the most astute populations, the execs and their lawyers put up a big old warning in red and white letters, please do not try this at home. Another important fact about Robert, he doesn't really like being told what to do. Never has, never will, and you probably see where this is going. So, my friend and I were playing around in my house, and my mom was off doing motherly things. And we decided with our 7-year-old brains that the best possible thing that we could do in that moment was to wrestle. And I mean like WWE wrestle. Doing my best Undertaker impression, I chokeslammed the Jesus, Mary, and Joseph out of this kid. We don't talk anymore. I can't say with certainty that that's not the reason, but who knows? Who knows? It was then that I learned there might have been a reason the warning message came up, right? My friend was he was in pain, he was on the ground, he was crying. My mom, assumedly hearing the loud thud and then the crying, came downstairs to see what had happened, and she pieced it together pretty quickly. She took the boy off to tend to his wounds, lest we get sued for what little we had at the time. She shot me a look to let me know that real consequences were coming, and she disappeared around the corner. In that moment, I remember sitting in butt-clenching anticipation thinking, I will not be able to sit down for the next 2 weeks. But I also realized something incredibly important. Even if I had a grade A ass whooping coming, there wasn't much to be done about it. So instead, I began to think, how did we get here? In reflection, it seems like it was probably somewhere between me ignoring the warning and chokeslamming a child, which, just a friendly reminder, I was also a child, otherwise it sounds so much worse. But I learned this, mistakes will happen. Sometimes there'll be big mistakes. Sometimes there'll be gargantuan, oh my God, I think I just broke this kid's back mistakes. But every mistake presents a real chance for growth. The ugly but beautiful thing about such mistakes is the fact that you never really know what's going to happen after you make them. But by applying what I said in lesson 1 and just doing your best, you come out of those mistakes with more knowledge than when you went in. And this does not just apply to preteen fight clubs. I've applied this comfort with the unknown to not having an internship locked down as early as I'd like, trying to resolve conflicts with people, and knowing when it's no longer productive for me to stress about things. Just making sure that you're always putting your best foot forward is often the best that we can do. And because this school is filled with people who are just as talented as me, if not more so, your best foot is usually a pretty good foot. Also, since I know you're all wondering how the story ended, my mom actually didn't spank me in that particular case. I think the whole ordeal just tired her out, if I'm being honest. I did not have friends over for a little while, and she wouldn't let me watch wrestling anymore. Totally unfair. I don't know. Now we move on to lesson 3. Learn to give hugs whenever you can. Fun fact, in 2009, Matthew Hertenstein, a psychologist from DePaul University, demonstrated that humans have the innate ability to communicate emotion through touch. He blindfolded patients, and then he had total strangers try and communicate 8 distinct emotions: anger, fear, disgust, love, gratitude, sympathy, happiness, and sadness, all through physical contact. Though participants were understandably apprehensive, the study found that participants could correctly interpret the emotion a whopping 78% of the time. I can't speak about the statistical veracity of the study or anything like that, but 78% is really a high number, right? Seeing this touch emotion, however, comes down to just watching babies. Babies are interesting little creatures. Mind you, I only have 2 nieces, so please don't count me as a real expert in anything. But I'll tell you about my first experience with my oldest niece, Sophia. The same. It's pretty late at night. She's in her crib asleep. My brother is super excited for me to meet her. He's just like, "Here's your niece." Just like, what am I supposed to do with it? Somehow, he ignores the fact that I clearly have no idea what I'm doing with a baby-like thing, and he tells me to hold her. Immediately in my mind, I just knew I was gonna drop her. I was gonna be run out of town like Frankenstein. It was a bad scene. So there I am, holding this tiny human out like this, and she starts to wake up. We lock eyes for one horrifying moment until she gets her bearings and realizes, this guy is not my father. Immediately, she begins wailing at the top of her lungs. My freak out dial, which has been hovering at a 7, automatically goes up to an 11.23. I started looking for anybody to hold her off to, like, no, please, just take her, I don't want it, I don't want this. Finally, after he stopped laughing at me, my brother said, just hold her closer. And I kid you not, as soon as this girl's head hit my chest, she went right back to sleep. The sound of my beating heart probably put her back to sleep. The thing is, when we as humans feel sad or upset, the simple contact of a hug communicates more than words alone. It tells us we're acknowledging each other's pain and struggles. We accept that it hurts to go through things, and we're assuring the other person that we'll stick with them through all those things. More than just doing things for the huggee, however, the hugger also gets the benefit of feeling closer to another person. When one of my fraternity brothers was dealing with some mental issues that were all too familiar to me, honestly, I had no idea what to say. There was no platitude that could alleviate the pain. There was no easy solution to put out there. So I did what I could. I spent time with them. I tore down that unspoken barrier between 2 heteronormative men, and I hugged him. And I mean really, really hugged him. At that moment, he broke down crying and told me that he felt like, for the first time, he had a big brother who would take care of him. That moment is by far one of the most meaningful experiences I've had at CMU. And it started with a simple hug. This leads me to my last, and perhaps most important lesson. Learn to accept the hug. What I found about my time here is that there are a lot of people who are great at taking care of others, but in feeling like we always need to be on for people, sometimes we forget to let others do the same for us. This can be more exaggerated for people like me who aren't exactly what you would call emotional connoisseurs. To revisit something that I might have downplayed earlier, after the girl that I mentioned earlier and I broke up, I felt incredibly empty inside. Though time has allowed me to realize that it was a toxic relationship, at that time it only felt like, and it only was, the end of my long and stable 3-year relationship. I didn't want to burden people, so I kept to myself. I detached from my friends. I put up barriers so that nobody could get through, and I slipped farther and farther down into that proverbial dark place. I was there for months, not feeling like I could talk to anybody, and I considered some pretty extreme things in my time. But I can say without a doubt that I'm standing here because of someone who reached out and kept reaching out, and they gave me a hug, both proverbially and physically. And when I lost my grandma to leukemia earlier this year, instead of waiting for people to reach out again, I did something crazy. I laid my head on my older sister's shoulder and I cried. I cried like a baby. And to my surprise, I actually felt better. Losing people really does hurt. But again, we're a species that does best when we work in tandem with other people. While the hug won't change the reality of the bad things that happen in life, it's a gentle reminder that we don't have to deal with those realities by ourselves. Society and high stress often make it seem like we're alone, but the ability of those around us to empathize truly knows no bound. So here we are at the end. You're all probably tired of hearing my voice. I know I'm tired of speaking, but I'll leave you with one last little tidbit, some bonus advice, if you will. Comfort zones are comfortable, but there's more freedom outside of them. Just like trying to get out of your warm bed on a really crappy Pittsburgh winter day, moving out of that zone can be incredibly difficult. But there's more to do outside of your bed than inside of it, right? Even if you count the non-sleeping things you can do in a bed. So go to a party instead of doing an assignment. I am not liable for what happens to your grades, just to be clear. Ask out a person that you've been super afraid. Stay up late having a conversation that just doesn't matter. The real secret to my happiness, to my contentedness at CMU, is the fact that I found ways to spend time doing things that I really want to do and to push the boundaries that are set up for me. And while this can be a very hard thing for people to figure out, I always put my money on CMU students to figure out life. Thank you.